class, which by the way, okay, I'm so scatterbrained today. Last week I forgot to tell where the recipes were and everybody was messaging me. So the recipes will be, both of these will be in the files of Living Our Keto Life recipes tonight after I type them up. Because I have not typed them up yet. And I was Marco Poloing Christy this morning and I'm like, I hope I remember my caramel sauce because I just kind of made it and then I couldn't remember anyway. But needless to say, after class last week I ended up with an extra crust and I already had a bunch of lemon tarts, so I'm like, I'm gonna try like a Twix bar. What I wasn't sure of is if my caramel would harden enough for a Twix or if it would stay a sauce. And so it did harden. And since then, I just pulled these out of the freezer hoping they'll thaw enough for you. I made caramels with pecans in them.
Oh gosh.
And they're amazing. And if they thaw out a little bit here, you'll be able to try them. I just put them in the freezer because I'm fasting and I didn't want them in front of my face.
Oh.
But, so what we're gonna do here, we're gonna do 2 recipes because this meal with the vegetables in it, the carbs, like it's a meal by itself. You don't need to add anything else to it. And then we're gonna make the caramel sauce. I'm not making the crust again. You can refer to last week's recipe. It's super easy, and it's been demoed a couple times, so I imagine I'll be using that crust for a lot of things, and I'm not gonna demo it every single time. But tonight, if you wanted to see the soft pretzel dough made, that is the recipe that I'm using. And so you'll be able to see that. And what I love about that recipe is check out all these things you can make with it. The one thing that's not featured on here is our pizza crust. But when I make this, I'll do 4 batches, and I'll make pizza crust and pretzels and bread rolls and all sorts of things. So just keep that in mind because this will be a staple in your life. It's what will make or break you, I think, with keto. So for a lot of people, not everybody, but especially in the beginning. Okay, so what I have going on here, because our caramel's gonna need to cook for a little bit, I have my butter in here. I'm gonna turn the heat up a little bit. And basically, I'm gonna have this on the heat until it turns brown. It's really important that you watch it because it can burn really fast, but it's also really important that you wait for it to turn brown because if it does, it kind of gives it that rich caramely flavor, if you will, kind of like when they do toffee. So I've got it on high, and once it starts turning, it goes quick. If you've ever done this before, it's kind of this, see how it's starting to turn? I don't know if you can tell on there. Anybody's always welcome to get up and come look. I want it to burn, I'm gonna pull it off the heat, and then to that, I'm gonna add heavy whipping cream. I don't add the heavy whipping cream on the stove because it can bubble up and over if it's on heat. So I'm gonna put this back on here, and then I'm gonna add my sweetener. Now my sweetener, you can use just your regular granulated keto approved sweetener. I do half Bocha Sweet and I do half Golden Lakanto. I've done it with half brown swerve. I just like the Golden Lakanto better. And so I'm gonna pour that in. You could use all of one and it wouldn't matter. I always use at least half Bocha Sweet when I'm doing stuff like this that I want to stay creamy because it will prevent it from crystallizing. So,
have you ever used brown sugar like that for your caramel? Because that's how I used my
the
caramel.
brown.
Before keto.
Oh yeah.
No. Well, before keto, I used to.
Well, that's what the Golden Lakanto is.
Oh, okay.
It's
Can you
replaced.
use the swerve brown?
Yes, but I didn't like the aftertaste. That's what I used on my first batch.
Okay.
And so then the second time I made it with the other one, and I liked it better.
Okay.
So some things I like the swerve for, and some things I don't. I mean, you just have to figure that out. I'm gonna bring this to a boil, kind of watching it, right? But once it comes to a boil, I'm gonna turn it to low, and I'm just gonna let it simmer really for like 15 minutes. So you wanna stir it every so often, or you could sit here and just stir it. Usually what I do is pull up a stool and just sit here and watch 24. So that's what we're gonna do here. So I'm gonna let that go. Don't go far. You don't want this to boil over, and it runs that risk. Okay. Now I need a stir, if I could have one. Okay, in here I'm gonna have Teresa's, or not Teresa, come here. How do you say your name, by the way?
Cecily.
Okay, because I was like, is it Cicely? Is it,
Go with
okay.
yes.
Okay, So in here is a double batch of our soft pretzel roll. This is the mozzarella cheese and the cream cheese for it. And while I'm getting the filling ready, I'm gonna have you work on that. Mostly a lot of people do this in the microwave. I usually make 4 batches at a time. It would be ridiculous in the microwave. And I'm not a microwave person. I don't like using it. And so I always do mine on the stove, but by all means do it in the microwave. If you're somebody who doesn't have a food processor when we get to that part, you can do a single batch by hand. I probably wouldn't do much more with that. So just so you know. Okay, so we're gonna make the filling for this chicken and broccoli braid. I use rotisserie chicken. I like it the best. It's got the dark and the light meat in it, and it's already done. You can cook your chicken any way you want. You could use canned chicken if you wanted. Then it just feels like tuna fish, though. Come on. Either way, it just needs to be cooked and chopped up. So I'm doing a double batch. We're doing 2 braids to make sure we have enough for you guys. So that is going to go in here. To that, I'm going to add chopped broccoli, fresh broccoli. I don't think there would be any problem using frozen broccoli. It would be fine. I would just make sure it's thawed first. I am going to add cheese. You get 2 kinds of cheeses because that's what happened in my life today. Okay? Oh my gosh. You're going to get some diced red bell pepper. And then I'm sure you could use the garlic from a jar, but there's not a lot in here, and so I just wanted to make sure that it was fresh. It is stronger when it's fresher. So if you use it out of a jar, I would use more than 1 bowl. We're using 2 because it's a double batch. Okay? This, I know nobody here has used it because it's brand spanking new and it's being released next week. Amazing is all I have to say. Did you notice in my pictures last week I made 3 braids? I did one with this, I did one with a new Fijian one, and I did one with just a dill mix that you can get at the store because I wanted to see what I liked better. You can use any type of seasoning blend you want. It doesn't matter. I love this, and I will use this every time. It was so, so yummy.
What's this one called?
Turmeric dust, yes, and it's got, hold on and I'll tell you what's in it. Do we need to turn it up? It's pretty low.
You need somebody to smell you off, I think.
I just had it so low. Okay, it's got in it the Wakaya kosher sea salt, organic Fijian turmeric, granulated garlic, chipotle powder, smoked paprika, orange, pink Fijian, organic pink Fijian ginger. It's delicious. You'll taste it in there. It's so yummy.
So if you don't have that, what can you use?
Any type of seasoning blend you want. Like I said, I've done the dill mix. I've done, you could do rosemary. You could just throw in you could just do salt and pepper. This was such a distinct difference that that's what I prefer. All right. So, we're going to add some mayonnaise to this. And then I'm going to add some salt. You doing okay? Sorry.
We're good.
Okay. And then I'm just going to mix this. I use my hands because I got my gloves on. Feel free to add more mayo, to add more cheese, however you want it. When the day comes and I figure out my macros, it will be with what the ingredients are on there. Okay, I'm going to let this sit here for a second. Switch my glove. Doing good? Okay, and we're going to get started on the bread while she's finishing melting the cheese. Seriously, melting the cheese is the time-consuming part. Everything else goes really, really fast. And I always have it measured out before starting. This caramel, by the way, will start turning darker as it's cooking down. So be prepared for that. That's normal. Okay, so into this bowl, keep in mind, double batch, almond flour, some melted butter, 4 eggs that are at room temperature. Well, I guess 2 eggs for a single batch. This is xanthan gum and yeast. The yeast does not actually make the bread rise. It's what gives it the bread flavor. Okay.
And what was that? Yeast. Doesn't actually
Just like bread yeast.
Now in the recipe it tells you to soften your yeast. I don't. I add it in with everything warm and it works just fine. So much easier to stir. Okay, so it's funny when I do 4 batches, I don't have to pull it like off the center thing. Scrape everything down. I mix all that stuff we put in here. If you have a KitchenAid mixer, it may take a little longer to mix. So that's okay, that's normal. And then I'm gonna take my cheese.
Is there a specific yeast you use?
You know what, the brand I use that I like the best is SAF, S-A-F. That's what I use.
And it's the quick acting stuff. You get a big one at Costco.
Of SAF? I've never seen it there. Is that new? I feel so robbed! That's really cool. Okay, so funny because this doesn't happen when I do 4 batches. If it starts winding up around here, just unwind it.
But you know, that's good for us to see because when we're not doing the 4 batches, we think we're doing
Yeah,
it wrong.
no, whenever I do less than 4, it does that. I think the other one just knocks it off, you know what I mean?
Sticky a little bit.
Still sticky. It will solidify a little bit more as it's sitting there, so I like to work with it pretty quick. Let's show them this, Christy. So this has gotten pretty good and thick. I'm gonna let it go just a few minutes more, I think, and then I'll add the vanilla to it. I add that to it at the very end. Now, I use coconut butter, not coconut oil. It's been a long day. I use this on my hands. And I use baking stones because that's what I use when I bake. Your cookie sheets will work fine. But because I use baking stones, they're in the oven already heating up. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to just divide this in half since we're doing 2 of them. Now, I tried rolling it out the first time. Not fun. Way easier to use your hands. And what you're doing is you're trying to get a rectangle shape. I'm looking at this thinking, wow, it could have mixed a little bit more. And you know, like a KitchenAid bowl is smaller, so 2 batches probably works, but.
So this is 4 batches or 2 that you did?
This is 2 that I did. Okay. And I'm gonna do that. I wanna do that to this one right now too because I just don't want it to start solidifying.
So the cut will go the 4 batches that you did to make the 2. This is 2 batches.
This is 2 batches, not 4. Yep.
Okay. Because I thought she did 4.
Normally I do 4 though, and it works a lot better. Yep. And I try to make it a little bit thinner on the bottom than I do on the top because I wanted, one of the worries the first time I made this, which was last week, is I wanted to make sure the dough cooked because we're not pre-cooking it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add my vanilla in here. Okay. And then I'm just gonna pour this right over the crust. Okay. I'll let it cool a bit, and then it's gonna go in the refrigerator to set up. So I'll put that over here right now. Okay, now this mixture is gonna get divided right down the middle of this. Now, I want you to think outside the box, because this is a chicken and broccoli braid. There's no reason you couldn't do a pizza braid. Think of anything you could stuff in bread, ham and cheese. It just doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
I used to do braids and would do it with a cream cheese mixture and fruit.
Yeah, there's so many things you could do.
It's really good.
Oh my gosh, that smells so good. I just love that seasoning. Now, the braid part is what intimidates people. But seriously, if you show up somewhere with this, you just became the coolest person there.
And say, hey, guess what? It's cute.
Yeah. But you don't tell them until after, or they don't try it.
Right?
Okay, so I do 2, 3, can't talk, sorry, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is what I do. And you want to kind of make sure they're lined up. Okay, so I'm going to do that to this one too. Now, the first time I did it, geez, I cannot talk, hold on. 6, 7. The first time that I did this, I cut the strips first. It makes more sense to put the filling in so that you cut them right up to the thing. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, super easy, right? Everybody's following me. I'm just gonna bring these up, put them together, and twist them down. If you need to see it, feel free to get up and come look, because it is beautiful.
Yes, you do. He's a very good cook. I say, hey, I have this idea, and he does it. His mom taught him well.
And there's always this little extra tail at the end. Okay? You could tuck it underneath. Or tie a bow in it.
There you go.
Oh, pretty.
Okay? Then I'm gonna start it, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Now, somebody messaged me and said, could you make 2 and freeze one? I don't like this dough even later in the day. Like if I save the dough, it starts tasting too yeasty or something. It's not good.
Cook it first.
So bake it, then freeze it. Yep, and I would heat it up in the oven. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do little individual ones of these and make personal meals, because people are always like, oh, it's just me. You know, look, I'm off balance here. You know, why you couldn't do that, more like a calzone style almost, okay? So it's just the filling and knowing what's in it. The next thing I'm gonna do is I have an egg white here, and I really water it down.
Like actual water.
Mm-hmm. About just as much water, I would say, as much as there is white. And then I whisk it up. This is what gives it the shiny look when it comes out. Okay, the next thing I'm supposed to do, you know, look at my counter. I have all these baking ingredients and no slivered almonds. So the next thing I would do is I would sprinkle it with sliced or slivered almonds. But sorry, everybody. I actually thought I had some. Like, it crossed my mind, but I'm like, I had them last week. I must have used them all. Or somebody ate them.
That would never happen.
No, my kids talk about the pizza incident of 2017 when they ate my pizza. questions on that? Okay, let me put these in the oven. So, one of the reasons I use parchment for everything is it just makes it so easy. Like when I'm doing cookies batch after batch, I can just slide one on and slide one off, right? Off and on. And into the oven it goes. All right. I'm worried that I have it at the wrong temperature. I might need to bump that up a minute, but let me just show you our Twix bars here. So, after that has set in the refrigerator, now if I was doing caramels with pecans, I wouldn't have had a crust, and I would have just added my pecans to it and then let it set in the fridge, okay? After this is set, you can use Lily's chocolate chips. I felt like it needed milk chocolate. So, 2 bars is what I used. You have to melt this very low heat. I use a double broiler. I seized 2 bars up last week. Do you know how disappointing that is to waste 2 Lily's bars of chocolate?
Yes.
And I add about 1/2 to 1 tablespoon of coconut oil per bar, because that will help protect it and it'll make it more spreadable. So once you get that melted, you can pour it over your caramel. Now, if you really want it to look like a Twix, feel free to do the dipping of all sides. I was not interested in that. I was feeling pretty comfortable with what I had going on here. Crash. Okay, and I didn't line this with parchment paper because it was kind of dipping in. So what I did is I coated it with coconut oil, but really this stuff doesn't stick. So just when you go to bring them out, just like that. And then I cut them like in little like rectangles, right? Okay. So a little, And this chocolate, one thing I should tell you, I had to go to work, right? And cover a shift for my friend. And so if you can cut it about 20 minutes after putting it in the fridge, it's cracking a little, but not enough that it's an issue. But that's just because it's so cold. Or pull it out before you cut it. Either way. Whoa, that was a big fat one. If it was on parchment paper, it would be easier to cut. I'll tell you that. I just pull it out and use my big knife. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. So I will get out of this one 30 bars. I think when I did it last time, they were a little bit narrower and I got 36. So, the first one,
Sacrificial.
you want it?
I do.
The first one is our sacrifice, and then we can pull them out. So there you go.
It doesn't look like crumbled or anything.
No, and look how thick that caramel is. So the trick to getting the caramel really thick is just like with regular caramel. You've got to cook it and simmer it. If you want it to stay a sauce, just don't cook it as long.
You have to keep them in the fridge.
I do keep them in the fridge. I haven't tried. Actually, I shouldn't say that. We took some out of the fridge the second day, and they were out for a couple hours. I didn't like them as well. I liked them better cold. Okay, do we have any questions on there?
Where do we get one of you? Where do we get one of you?
I'd like a personal you.
I would. I would ask for
Come on, but this was easy, right? You have a few steps, but it wasn't hard. You guys can do this.
She makes everything.
Well, if I could just walk in the door at 5:30 tonight and do this, you can too. Show my viewers my counter here.
Yeah.
Getting ready to make about 130 treat boxes for our convention next week.
Wow.
So people got to survive when they're out of town, and I am the key to your survival. So lots of deliveries when I'm at convention. Anyway, so here's what we're going to do, because that's going to take about 20 minutes. You guys get to start with your dessert first. I'll give you caramels too. You can try those, and then we'll be ready to eat. So we can just talk, and if you have any questions or whatever, that's just how it goes. Okay, we're gonna say goodbye to everybody there.